Clubhouse. 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 Thank you. Clubhouse. Clubhouse. Thank you. Clubhouse. 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 Clubhouse.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we will be talking about John Paul's Bucks. That's right, John Paul's Bucks. John Paul's Bucks in Phuket, Thailand is the subject of today's episode. Hey, how's it going? You alright? How you feeling today? I hope you're well. I really do. Are you okay? See, these are just nice affirmations, nice words, nice things to hear. Things that I don't think I've ever heard out of my aunties, uncles, and father. I say John Paul's Bucks, right? But I'm not a close personal friend of John Paul. He's a good friend of Saeed, my cousin, who I will be suing soon. And I principally went to Thailand not for John Paul and his Bucks, but rather to hang out with my cousins, who were also my friends, overseas in Thailand, to search for that cathartic experience in Thailand. Because just like catharsis in Europe, you can have that sort of emotional catharsis in Thailand. It's all about traveling and just enjoying yourself, right? Thailand's a place that I've been to several times, and I really, really enjoy it for different reasons. You know, at one time it was, a place for me to get drunk and raucous and sort of achieve that catharsis that way. Kind of like let out all of my kind of id, the worst sort of instincts that I have, that crude sort of bestial kind of version of yourself. The unrestrained id, was the reason that I'd go to Thailand back in the day. But going there more recently as a father and as a husband, it was just a place for me to sort of achieve that catharsis through, extreme alcohol consumption, let's just say. I think I was just excited about the fact that I'll get to drink a lot of alcohol in a foreign country where things are cheaper and I'm away from my, wife and kids. I think, that in and of itself was me kind of giving in to the more inappropriate side of my psyche. Or, rather, I don't even have to complicate it. Dude, it was just nice to get drunk with the boys overseas in Thailand, Phuket. That's it, And it was enjoyable, that idea. And, I was working, I could easily afford it and carve out time from work to do it. So why not? So for me, it wasn't really about John Paul and his Bucks and his marriage. It was really just about me going overseas with my cousins and hanging out with them. And what was revealed about my cousins on that trip is something that I'd like to share with y'all. So, I love traveling to Phuket, and I already know, I know what the goal is as soon as we get there. I know how to get to Phuket town. I know how far the airport is from Phuket town. I arranged a private shuttle bus for all of us, and I bought a bunch of beers from the airport convenience store so we can have roadies on the way to the hotel, or rather the Airbnb in Phuket. We drove to Phuket town, and the group of us were split into two Airbnbs. John Paul and Saeed and Sebastian and Zulzul, I think, and John Paul's friends stayed in one Airbnb, and I stayed in another one with Majid and I think John Paul's brother and John Paul's brother's friend. And the first night was just the sort of ideal kind of Bucks night that you have, um, with your friends. We took the shuttle bus, had our roadies on the shuttle bus to the Airbnbs. We went to each respective, Airbnb, and then we met at a bar and just spent the whole night there, just throwing away money and drinking, a crud load of alcohol. And that night was messy for me. I woke up with both of my legs in one sort of leg of my shorts. It was like I was wearing a tight dress. It was, yeah, my God, I blacked out. Oh, so hard that night. It's a good night though. It really was. It was that awesome sort of revelry kind of night, that I really enjoy. I don't like what it devolves into, what it always had devolved into for me, which was me over drinking. But before, the overly inebriated side of me came out, it was just fun. I think there was one point where I went behind the bar and made around the cocktails for people. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. At one point, in our trip, Saeed traumatized the prostitute because he was too rough with her. I just want to put that in there because I think that that's important. A theme that I've realized in my life is that Saeed and Majid and that side of my family were the worst parts, the most immoral, the most vile, the most criminal, the most deviant um, parts of the extended friendship group. So, what I mean by that is that the bad egg or the fly in the ointment of the trip, in my mind, was so Majid, for example, because he took way too much cocaine and he was just horrible to be around the morning after and the day after. And he did that thing that, people in drug spirals do where he'd wake up in the late afternoon or early evening every day, and then he'd drink alcohol shortly after he woke up to sort of cope with the come down, and then he'd just repeat it again. And I found it so uncomfortable to be around him. And then you think of Saeed and his sexual exploits, and then you realize, oh gosh, yeah, my cousins are like the worst parts, the most devious kind of parts of this trip to Thailand, you know? And I knew that I was susceptible, that I was basically like an alcoholic or a problem drinker at that point. So I knew like the parameters of my sort of issue, right? And I tried to kind of like keep it under wraps or keep it in check. And so, I get drunk, but I try to get up every morning and go for a run and go for a walk. And, I had my sort of self care, hangover sort of treatment for the morning after. Um, and I believe I was in Thailand for only 3 days. I want to say three, but it might have been 5 days. I think I was there for 3 days, and most of the people there were either there for 5 days or 7 days. I think no, Majid spent about $10,000 in the week that he was there on drugs and prostitutes. Um, yeah, I tried to run daily. I was struggling back then with emotional issues and all that sort of stuff. And now I'm realizing, how significant my sort of mental health issues and how significant my substance abuse issues were. But it's interesting that Majid was struggling with his own substance abuse issues, but his was cocaine, and he refused to acknowledge that. Because I always felt that like my issue was quite significant, but at least it's not cocaine. I don't think that Majid ever saw, his drug use is an issue or something that's addictive, which is unfortunate because it's caused him a lot of grief and harm and loss of money and finances. Uh, so Majid was doing a lot of cocaine in Thailand, and I was staying in an Airbnb, a beautiful Airbnb, with John Paul's brother's friend, who was a fascinating character to me. So he was very muscular and he was tatted up, right? I don't know what his name is, but he was literally like a character out of the, novels that I kind of read, because he presented himself as quite tough, but how do I put this? I'm sure he was tough and cool and successful and whatever, but it was obvious that he had some sort of emotional issues, because he hired a a girlfriend for a week, and I just found that so revealing. That he just so comfortably hired a woman to pretend that she likes him for an extended period of time. At least that's what it looked like to me. From my perspective, he was living with me. We were living together, but we weren't sort of friends. We were just, like acquaintances. Like I'd pass him by, and like to me, he's a weirdo, and I'm sure to him, I'm a weirdo, right? But I just found it so sad that he was paying for like a friend. Uh, he was just hanging out with a group of chicks that he was paying for. And I don't know if he knew how kind of sad that was. And it was sort of compounded by the fact that it was very expensive. And I think the rumor that was going around on the trip is that he couldn't afford these girls and he had to keep borrowing money. And so in my mind, I'm like, this guy's sending himself broke, going broke, because he's paying for companionship. It wasn't sex, you know? It was companionship. And I'm like, dude, I'm here. We could just have a chat. We can go for a walk. Like, what's wrong with you? This is really, really uncomfortable and odd for me, because I felt what it was about, and it just made me uncomfortable. I think because it wasn't sexual, it was like therapy that he was paying for. And I just found that gross and sad. But there were highlights of the trip. There were plenty of highlights. So one of the highlights for me was my cousin Sebastian, my first cousin Sebastian, who I've always greatly admired and I've felt sorry for, because he gets mistreated by his first cousins because he's meek. He doesn't come across as a vile prostitute rapist. Gosh, that's so strong. Saeed didn't rape the prostitute. Saeed just basically was so rough with her that she ran out of the room and started crying. Like, yeah, no, that's sexual assault, for God's sakes. Yeah, my God. That's the sort of thing that Saeed embodied. Lordy, lordy, loo. And Sebastian was a sweetheart, and a nice person, and is not into sexually molesting women. And so he would be made fun of, I suppose, by people like Saeed and Majid. And I never sort of understood it, because I felt like he was much more well put together, attractive, athletic, smart, cultured, like he lives in France and he was only in Sydney for a holiday to see his dad when he decided to come with us to Thailand, right? And enjoy that sort of trip. And he wasn't having sex and traumatizing prostitutes. He was training in Muay Thai. Yeah, that's what we were chatting about. How he was going to, I think, like kickboxing or Muay Thai tournaments, and he was doing training. He bought shorts. and I believe gloves, right? Yeah, so he was being kind of like, I want to say athletic, but no more than that. He was taking advantage of the better um, recreational activities in Phuket, right? Because Phuket is also just a beautiful coastal beach town, right, in Southeast Asia, that has such a vibrant, beautiful culture, and they love their Muay Thai, right? And they're world famous for it, right? So there's not just alcohol and prostitutes and, Valium and Xanax and Ritalin and Dexies, right? And cheap, Thai, drinks at bars. There's, other side. There's the sporty, athletic, recreational sort of stuff as well. And Sebastian was more in line with the lighter sort of recreational activities, and he really wasn't involving himself in all the disgusting activities that Saeed and Majid were getting up to: prostitution, significant alcoholism, which is me. Like, he wasn't overly drinking like me, thankfully, because I'm also not a great influence, or I wasn't at the time, right? He didn't do any cocaine, yeah, and he just kept to himself and did his own lovely sweet thing. And we went out one day, and I want to stress that it was a day thing where we were day drinking on Bangla Road. Ooh, boy, howdy. Let me tell you about the joys of day drinking at on Bangla Road in Phuket. So, Bangla Road is sort of like the big high street place where all the bars are. And I'd normally only go there, or I'd only like start drinking, in the evening. But sometimes it's nice to just when the sun's up on a beautiful sunny day, to go bar hopping on Bangla Road. Bar hopping, having cocktails in each bar, and I want to sort of stress that, like, I like the pina coladas and the mojitos and the daiquiris and all that sort of stuff, as opposed to the beers. If um, I had the option or the luxury, and by the way, I don't drink anymore, but I don't think that drinking is necessarily always a bad thing. I think day drinking, bar hopping in Bangla Road, going out at night, is fine. My issue is over drinking, you know, and all the mess that's associated with it, the violence, the inappropriate behavior, the vomiting, just the disrespecting of someone else's culture as well, to go there to just basically like vent, to just, shit and vomit all over a lovely city. Um, but yeah, to sort of like bar hop, every hour, go to a different bar, and like 6 bars or 5 bars in 6 hours, and just enjoy yourself and have a chat. That's what I was doing with Sebastian. We were just bar hopping, day drinking on Bangla Road. Um, and I got to learn a lot about him, because he was revealing himself. He allowed himself to reveal himself to me because he trusted me and he was comfortable in front of me, to an extent that he, hadn't been before with me or with any of his cousins, right? So I, was honored, let's just say, that he spoke to me and he confided in me. And I'm not going to, talk about what we talked about because that's, personal, but we connected, and I learnt more about him, and I gained um, some valuable insight into the person that he is, and I gained far more respect for him, right? And that was, due to us having a lovely sort of D&M experience overseas. For me, there was an emotional catharsis in just being able to connect with my first cousin in a way that I haven't been able to with any of my cousins before. And so, yeah, that was an honor and a privilege, and I loved it. That was the a highlight of John Paul's Bucks for me, you know, and I think that's what it represented as a whole for me. Me wanting to connect with my cousins, um, rather than celebrating, you know, John Paul getting married. But I want to just um, shout out to John Paul just for the concept of the Bucks. I really do think that going overseas for a Bucks is a really good option. I think Bali and Thailand are great options for people living in Australia to go to and to have that beautiful sort of cathartic experience. Don't be too messy. Don't traumatize a prostitute like Saeed, but just enjoy yourself. It's not that expensive. And that's one of the things. When you break down the cost, it's not that much. At the time, it was as little as $500 for a return ticket to Thailand. And an Airbnb between a group of like five guys is bloody peanuts, And then going out, peanuts as well. So it's very doable as a Bucks. And it's really, really lovely, But go there, because it's a multi-day thing. You're not going to go all the way to Thailand just for like 2 days, right? You'll go there for between three absolute minimum to five or seven absolute max, in my opinion. And take your time, right? Have events, have activities, but have them to sort of bring you together as friends and family, go bar hopping. And by the way, um, don't measure your friends by the amount of, I don't know, don't think about Bucks as an opportunity for you to show off how many friends you have, right? Just choose your absolute closest best friends, and only have them go to the Bucks. I don't know why there needed to be like 200 people or 100 blokes going to my, Bucks or Saeed's Bucks. I have about maximum 30 people that I'd really want to celebrate my sort of Bucks with, let's just say. And there were about 170 of them were Saeed's mates, and more, like Saeed's kind of my cousins, but they're only going there to my Bucks for Saeed's sake, so they can traumatize prostitutes with him. I don't know. But I like smaller boxes, so I prefer, a group of 5 to 10 people going overseas than a house with like 50 to 100 guys, me personally. And by the way, Saeed never asked. So in a way, John Paul's Bucks was kind of like the Bucks that I would have had in Thailand. Airbnbs and just going out. Nothing wrong with that. Having a lovely, D&M with my cousins. That's something that I yeah, like, so, for any young for any Lebanese, sorry, for anyone that is thinking of having a Bucks overseas that lives in New South Wales, or Australia, yeah, definitely consider Phuket. Nothing wrong with it. Great Bucks. Just don't, how do you say, traumatize prostitutes. Don't go there for the wrong reasons. Don't go there to basically just crap all over another culture. Go there to really sort of enjoy yourself, to get the most out of it, and to connect, with your friends and family in a different kind of way, because you're going to be ushered into this new sort of life where you're going to be sharing it with your wife. And this is sort of a bucks is like a last hurrah, So what do you want your last hurrah to be? What do you want it to be about? For me, it's really just about connecting with family and friends, to share in that sort of revelry. and that was achieved for me um, at John Paul's Bucks, funnily enough, you know. And I just want to shout that concept out in this video, and a shout out to Sebastian, a shout out to Zuzu Hanna, a shout out to John Paul, and you know, a word to Saeed. You know, bro, uh, like this idea that you had that you're a good moral person is just not evident. You know, you were pretending. You wanted to be a good moral person, and you had a good moral person trying to help you with work, which was me, and you basically abused me. But also, Saeed, you had a good moral person as a best friend in John Paul, and you kept insisting that you were the good moral person and that John Paul ought to follow you. But what happened? Well, here's how I feel from my perspective. As John Paul became a man, after he got married, after he had his kids, you saw less and less of him because he was focused more on work, but also he succeeded far better, or far more, or far greater, the further away he was from people like you. And I think that that's the overall point that I want to get across, is that you had a depraved Bucks, Saeed. You know, that really, gosh, like there was no room for me to do anything other than just get like drunk, you know, and there was no catharsis. It was just, oh God, misery, just this weight of, really, are we just gonna come here and just drink a crud load of alcohol and snort a bunch of drugs and stare at topless waitresses? Is that what it's gonna be about? Is that, you know, who you are, Saeed? Is that, you know, what you are? And I suppose the answer is, well, yeah, kind of essentially, that's the kind of person that you are. And I think it's worthwhile for you to really look at yourself in the mirror and consider the kind of father that you will turn into if you keep going this way. You know? Hey, it took me making a global podcast, you know, for you to sort of understand that you've been such a bad influence in my life. Saeed, Majid, Maroon, and Majid, my father, you know. And I really just want that to be crystal clear at this point, that I was doing fine without you. And when I think back of my past events that I did, that I enjoyed, occasions and things that I did that I enjoyed with you, when I really sort of deconstruct and think about why I enjoyed it, well, I enjoyed it because of me. You know, I went to Thailand with you guys, but uh, I got the most out of hanging out with Sebastian, or, you know, exercising and doing my own thing during the day. Then when I think about, you know, parts of the trip that I didn't enjoy, they were always, you know, with Saeed or Majid. So that's unfortunate that that's how it sort of ended up. But I think it's good that we both have this understanding, you know, and that it might be worthwhile for you to reconsider your relationship with John Paul, and perhaps see him as someone that can guide you. Because remember, he's well ahead of you, in every way that you can think of. He's ahead of you financially. He's ahead of you in terms of where he's at in life with his family, with work, with respect in the community, unfortunately, as well. You know, yeah, yeah, I think that it was clear that, you know, you weren't really a great person in the community anyway, given the fact that you were sued twice this year. But I really want you to consider this episode, and like and subscribe, Saeed, and comment as well, because you were happy to comment to the police, right? You were interviewed at Auburn Police Station. My God. You went to the police station and you were interviewed. And you just, yeah. What did you say to the police about me, Saeed? Oh, yeah, man. John Paul wouldn't have done that, right? He's too good of a person. His heart's too pure. He would have, instinctively, he would have felt that that's just gross, right? But you didn't have that instinct, did you? Of course not. Because when push comes to shove, you're just someone that sexually assaults prostitutes in Thailand and traumatizes them and makes them cry. Let that sink in. Alright. Love you.